Okay, I'm going to read now from Rays of the One Light, and this is week 22, the Inner Kingdom. These are parallel passages from the Bible and the Gita written by Swami Ananta. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Most people imagine that the inner kingdom, as Jesus described it, lacks the fascination they attribute to sense life. The bright lights, the diverse attractions, the joys and the laughter. Little do they realize what a vast universe exists in their own selves. There are many passages in the Old and New Testaments of the Bible that describe aspects of this inner kingdom. In the book of Genesis we read, "And the Lord planted a garden eastward in Eden, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." This garden was in no earthly place. It exists even now in the very self of every human being. The legend of Adam and Eve is allegorical. It describes how the first human beings dissipated their spiritual energy, centered in the spine. The spine is the channel through which flows the river of baptism and of spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita tells us, the wise speak of an eternal Ashwatha tree with its roots above and its branches below. The tree of life, spoken of also in Genesis, is the spine. Its roots are above in the brain's energy. Its branches are the outward spreading nervous system. When the sap, which is to say the energy, flows downward, the consciousness is drawn into delusion. On the other hand, when the energy is drawn upward in deep meditation, the consciousness is drawn towards its eternal source, God, and is at last united with Him. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, therefore, urges his chief disciple, Arjuna, to embrace the yoga science, the path of meditation. The yogi, he says, is greater than the ascetic, greater even than the followers of the paths of wisdom, jnana yoga, or of action, karma yoga. Be thou, O Arjuna, a yogi. For those who would find the divine truth, Krishna gives this description of the yogi. Steadfast, a lamp burns, sheltered from the wind. Steadfastly meditating, solitary. Such is the likeness of the yogi's mind. Shut from sense storms and burning bright to heaven. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. I'd like to now read from Yogananda's Whispers from Eternity. This is entitled, I Want to Hear Thy Song in the Silence of My Soul. Thy gentle voice saying, "Come home," I often heard, but through many lives it was drowned in the tumult of my wild cravings. I have forsaken the jostling crowds of desire. In the solitude of my mind, my devotion bursts to hear thy voice. Take away every dream memory of earthly sounds that yet lurks in my mind. I want to hear thy still voice, ever singing in the silence of my soul. So, a very hearty welcome to you all. We recently hosted here at Ananda Village some of Yogananda's family, Somnath and Sarita Ghosh. And at least twice Sarita said in my hearing, the people from Chennai have so much devotion. She loved meeting you. I don't know who all went to Calcutta, but she just spoke so deeply and profoundly of the devotion that the devotees have in Chennai. So it's a joy for us to be able to experience your devotion, to be with you in this way. This subject this morning is the inner kingdom. And I first, in reading this, thought of the words of St. Augustine. I'm not going to quote it exactly, I'll simply paraphrase it. But essentially, it goes, man travels the world searching for adventure. He travels the vast ocean. He explores the rivers, pioneers new lands, solar systems, gazes at the stars, and yet passes that most crowning wonder, his own self. And I thought that so fitting when talking of the inner kingdom, as Swamiji shared in the commentary. We are so swept up in this beautiful creation of God's, and it keeps us busy and distracted, and we forget that inner reality. One of Yogananda's foremost woman disciple, Jnanamata, Sister Jnanamata, he would call her sister, and she described this realm saying, too much joy, too much joy. And Yogananda in his poem, Samadhi, said, enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy, speaking and addressing this inner reality that is yours, that is mine, that can be perceived. Every human being is like unto a kingdom. Within our mind are countless, too many to number, it says in the Mahabharata, citizens. And these citizens are vying for our attention. And they are calling us to good things, great things, and they are also defending the ego and limitation. And more or less, to what degree we are rooted in the ego, we experience this battle, this conflict, and it's tremendous, it's huge. You know, scriptural epics have been written about this great battle that ensues when these citizens come together, born of the ego, some of them aligned with truth, some of them not. Swami Kriyananda would oftentimes talk about it in this way. He would say, in a universal sense, regardless of our religious or spiritual orientation, when we feel good, when we feel happy, when we feel awake, our energy moves upward, specifically in the spine, and we experience that upward flow of energy as dynamic, as enlightening. And by the same token, when we feel down, when we feel disturbed, when we feel negative or moody, our energy moves down the spine. And we feel that our very posture reflects these two different experiences. And this experience gives us a very powerful hint as to how to reclaim this inner reality, to reclaim this inner kingdom. The fact that we live in these bodies, live in this world, have all manner of responsibilities, does not need to mean that this inner kingdom cannot be ours, cannot be experienced or attained. Not at all. And so Yogananda, he would oftentimes tell this story, and it highlights a principle that I want to point out here. If we think of God, that inner kingdom is close to us. And he loved to tell this story, the story of Vyasa and the gopis. And every day they would go to see their Lord Krishna, and they would take to him fresh cheese, chana. And on this particular day, as they came to the river, which every day they would cross to see their beloved, the river was a raging torrent. And Vyasa could not ferry them across. And they stood there, what do we do? How can we get to our Lord? And Vyasa said to the gopis, what are you thinking? You're taking all of this to Krishna? You're taking him all of this chana? What about me? I'm hungry. I would like some cheese. And the gopis were bewildered. How can this man be so rude? How can he be thinking of himself when we've made this for Krishna? But they could do nothing. So they gave Vyasa some of the cheese. And Vyasa ate almost all of it, leaving just this small little portion. And the gopis could not believe it. They were beside themselves. And at that moment, Vyasa faced the river and he said, "O river Jamuna, if I have not eaten one piece of cheese, divide up and part." And in that moment, the river spread open. And the gopis, bewildered and yet in awe, took that opportunity and dashed across the floor of the river and to see Krishna on the other side. Well, Krishna was asleep, and this was a little unusual. Usually he was expectant, anxious, waiting for the gopis to come with this holy cheese that they had just made, and there he was asleep. And so they waited, and finally Krishna stirred and he goes, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" "Well, we've brought you cheese like we always do, Lord." "Oh, I don't want any cheese," Krishna said. "No more cheese, no more cheese. The man on the opposite side of the river has fed me too much cheese." And the gopis, being as they were, centered in devotion, even so, they took this to heart and they understood the devotion of Vyasa, that in just the thought of Krishna while he was eating that cheese, Krishna was fed that cheese. And so Master used to love to tell this story. When we think of God, Swamiji says, think of God, his energy will flow through you. So when we think of God, we cross that bridge to the inner kingdom. Even if we're active, even in daily life, with all of our responsibilities, all of our obligations, if we think of God, we do not leave that inner kingdom. One of Yogananda's disciples, Dr. Lewis, tells this story. He was walking with Yogananda on the beach, and they came to a jetty, a projection of rock out into the ocean that helps to still and calm relatively the ocean a little bit. And Yogananda headed out there to the furthest point of that rock jetty and sat down on those angular big boulders and closed his eyes and began to meditate. Dr. Lewis was very new to this and new to meditation, but he told himself, "I am going to sit. I am not going to move. I am not going to get up. I am not going to be restless until Yogananda completes this meditation. Well, the tide was out at this time. The water was gentle and far back. But a half hour went by. An hour went by. 2 hours went by. 3 hours went by. And the tide had approached and was almost upon them. And every once in a while, Dr. Lewis would open his eyes and look, and he was fearful and agitated, but he didn't want to move because Yogananda was so still. And finally, when this big wave came in, it was almost going to fall right on top of them, perhaps even carry them out to sea. And Yogananda shouted out, "Let's get out of here," and tore off and ran back to the beach and to safety. But Yogananda said afterwards to Dr. Lewis, because you were able to be so still, you will never again experience restlessness. And so this is another point of entry to the inner kingdom, the practice of inner stillness, of being still, not just outwardly, not just with closed eyes, but being still inwardly and focusing on God. And the last thing I wanted to just say was, I work sometimes with the Ananta meditation course online, and a student wrote the other day and was having challenges in meditation. And looking at that and reflecting on that, this student said, every time I sit to meditate, I expect that I will see God, and I don't. And when is this going to start happening? When am I going to see God every time I sit down to meditate? And I was touched by that. I remembered Master's words, to those who think me near, I am near. And to seek the light behind the darkness of closed eyes. These are also Yogananda's words. God is here. This inner kingdom is not something that is far away, far off, unattainable. It's right here within us. As soon as we close our eyes, as soon as we pull down that screen over this veil of Maya, we start to open up to that experience of the inner kingdom. And so when you sit, call on God, think of God, be still, and ask Him, as Yogananda said, formulate that prayer, reveal thyself, reveal thyself.
When Swami Kriyananda began Ananda, he made it clear to us that we must begin to live in the inner kingdom and then go about the business of creating the community and spreading the work and teaching Kriya Yoga to others. But we couldn't ever successfully do that unless we lived more and more, deeper and deeper in the inner kingdom. All of the teachings of Kriya Yoga, the techniques, Om technique, Hong Sa technique, energization, Kriya Yoga, are meant to give us the experience of the inner kingdom in formal practice, so that we turn our point of vantage from the outside world looking at the inner kingdom to us as disciples, as the Sangha, living in the inner kingdom, and then seeing the outside world out there. In that way, we live like a master. Master saw everything from the point between the eyebrows and then saw the outside world. And he had much work to do, first in India, and then in America, and then traveling back to India, and teaching and talking to people. And when he was done, he told Kriyananda, you have much work to do. You bring Kriya to the world. Write books, write music, make movies, do all these things in an outer way, but do them all from the inner kingdom. So as disciples, we need to establish our consciousness in the inner kingdom, as Maria's saying. We have to be like Vyasa, seeing everything from the point of view of our oneness with God. Vyasa was one with Krishna, so if he ate the cheese, Krishna got the cheese. We have to live that way. We have to live in God, in the light, and then see the outside world. And in that way, the outside world will be illuminated by the light of God, but it will be dimmer than the inner light. Once you, Master said, after you've tasted the inner joy, everything else is like stale cheese. And that's true. Kriyananda lived in the inner kingdom, and then he went about his business, which is our business, in the outer world. He brought kindness, he brought positive thinking, he brought joy, respect, all these qualities to the outer life because he was living the inner life in God. Kriya Yoga gives us that experience of the reality of God within us, the light of God at the point between the eyebrows, the love of God in our hearts, Shanti within our lives, power, Shakti, the sound of Om. And as we experience that every day, at least twice a day, we begin to live more in the inner kingdom, and then we visit the outer kingdom. Worldly people live in the outer kingdom, and they visit the inner kingdom occasionally. Maybe they come to hear Swami Kriyananda talk, and they feel the energy. They come to the Sangha, and they feel, oh, this is a joyful group. This is a wonderful group. But then the call of the world is always calling us out. But there's a new job, there's a new movie, there's a new dance, there's a lot of new things in the world. I don't know about a lot of them anymore because I've lived here too long. But I know that they're still out there because they used to be out there when I was young. And I decided they really weren't as tempting as the inner kingdom. It's very hard for the worldly person to come one time to the Sangha, or to come to hear Kriyananda, or to see Jyotishan Devi, or even to just have a spiritual experience and make the connection how deep, how bright, how much love is there. It's hard for a worldly person. All of us must have had very good karma, because when we saw the Guru, and when I saw Yogananda's picture, I knew that's it. There's nothing else. This is it. And worldly people have a hard time because they only get to open a little window into the inner kingdom. They peer in for a second. The light is beautiful. The people are loving and kind, respectful. They have dignity. They have inner strength. That's why people came to see Kriyananda. He had those qualities. But then the world lures us to come back to the outer world. Don't meditate so much, they told Yogananda in the ashram. Don't try to find God so soon. But Kriyananda told us, try to find God so soon. Try to find Him sooner. Because once you find God, once you have that experience, then the inner kingdom becomes home. That's reality. And then we have to go out to our jobs to form the merger and to do the movie and to give the talk. And we do have to do all that. We have to take care of our families, and we have to take care of our land and our children and our schools and all those things, yes. But if we do it from the inner kingdom, then the joy of God, Ananda, the love of God, Prem, comes out through our work, through our business, through our merger, through our takeover bids, through whatever it is we have to do. And we have to do all that because it's our dharma. But if we do it from the inner kingdom, then the vibration of Ananda comes out, and then there's joy, in and out. And people see that, and it makes them interested. What is in that inner kingdom? I would like to visit that kingdom. That seems like a good place, because they see our community, they see our schools, and they say, even Kartikeyan was with us. Kartikeyanji was with us at the last week and visiting, and he said, it's everybody is in joy. Everybody is like Kriyananda. The saying, all of Krishna's soldiers were like Krishna. All of Kriyananda's soldiers are like Kriyananda. They have joy. They have love. They have forgiveness when needed. They have kindness. And people on the outside say, that is what I want. And then they're interested in the inner kingdom. Then it's not so exciting to see the outer kingdom. So we need to practice our techniques deeply. And when you're meditating, turn off the outer kingdom. Just be in the inner kingdom. Bathe in it. Dive deep. Chant with devotion. Meditate with joy. Be still, like Maria's saying. But let go of the outer world for the time of meditation. And then, when meditation is over and we return to the outside world, carry that joy out and see the outside world as a filtered version of the inner kingdom. A little dimmer, sunglasses on. Thick sunglasses, can barely see the light, but it's still there. And then we go about our business. That's how Kriyananda lived in the world. He always had joy, even when he was buying a computer or a radio or something. You would look in his eyes and he's just talking to God through a salesman, through whatever it is. He never lost it, the connection with God. And because of that, because he lived in that inner kingdom, the time and space difference disappeared for him. Swamiji would tell us things 40 years before they happened. He told us we would go to India in 1977. We went to India in 1999 or 2000. It's 30 years later. But I don't think that Kriyananda had much awareness of the outer kingdom sometimes. He lived in the inner kingdom. Everything was light. Everything was beauty. Everything was master to him. And that's how we have to live, is live in master, live in joy. And then we go into the outer kingdom, and it loses a lot of its drama. It's just a movie. If you like it, it's good. If you don't like it, watch another movie the next day. It's not so important anymore. So we need to practice this, disciples. That's why we have the Sangha. Because we come together in the inner kingdom. We share our lives, our troubles, our joys. And then we realize we're in the inner kingdom all the time. And the inner kingdom is the permanent reality. The outer kingdom is always changing, always coming and going. There's a world war, and there's a trouble in this place and that place, and there's a typhoon, and there's a volcano, and there's this and that. But the light of God never changes. And so live in the inner kingdom, and then we do our business in the outer world. and everyone enjoys it more. The movie's better when we stay in the inner kingdom, at least with our heart and with a part of our consciousness. So thank you all for being there. We've banished time and space. We're all together in God.
Hi Sharmila, hi Kartik.
Hi Tulasi.
Would you guys like to ask any questions? We have an opportunity to hear from these acharyas, and it'll be nice and refreshing.
And Mary, you can go off mute if you want to ask a question.
Okay.
Any burning questions?
Okay, I'll ask the first question. How hot is it?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I stole her question.
we hear it's hot. We hear it's hot.
What did you want? I had last week.
Was it 41 there? Oh my gosh, 42. Oh no.
What is that?
It's
That's like 105.
116.
No, 105.
Close.
Wow.
We may have to extend our stay here then.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Just kidding.
Just kidding.
If they stay too long, it'll be 42 here.
Yeah, it's warm here now.
Yeah.
Okay, so who will ask the second question?
So everybody must be practicing going on to the inner kingdom
Yeah,
perfectly.
they're all in the kingdom. inner
Everybody's
kingdom.
in the inner kingdom all the time, no questions.
Kartik, you can usually be relied upon for a good
Actually,
question.
Prasanna was starting to ask
Oh,
a question.
Prasanna, did I interrupt you?
I did.
We would like to know about how you two came to Ananta. First came to Swamiji.
Good question.
I came to Ananta actually to learn how to meditate. I was in college and wanted to learn how to meditate, and a friend who had gone to high school at Ananta told me about Ananta and said, if you really want to learn how to meditate, you should go to Ananta, because the people live there and they live that lifestyle that supports meditation. The ones who live there, they meditate. It's a way of life. So I came to Ananta to learn how to meditate, and that was in 1976. I met Swamiji, and the moment I met him, the day I came was his birthday. I didn't stay at that time, but I came for an interview to see if I could participate in the summer program. So it was Swamiji's birthday, and from the moment I saw him, I just thought, here is somebody who knows more than I'll ever know in my life. And I had no idea that I knew nothing about the guru-disciple relationship. I wasn't raised in religion. This was all totally new. I didn't know about communities. But he was just so magnetic, and I just knew I was home. So it was a little bit of a process after that, but basically I've been here since then. So that's my story.
So I lived in San Francisco when I was young, and many spiritual teachers would come in the 60s and give talks, and there was even a radio show that was on, and Swami Kriyananda was on the radio show, and I had received Kriya from Master from the lessons, and I was intrigued by Kriyananda's voice and his love and his energy, and so I bought a book that he wrote, and I read the book, and I wrote him a letter saying that the book was very good because it explained how we practice Kriya in relationship to the arts, which I was with a lot of artists. A lot of friends were mine were artists. So Swami Kriyananda wrote me a letter back, and he said, "Why don't you come and visit us?" And I thought, if he only knew who he was writing to, he would never invite me to come and visit. Because I was a hippie. I was a young hippie. I was 20 years old. And so I came, and I met Swamiji, and I took initiation into Kriya, and I never left.
Ashwini has got it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You spoke about the inner kingdom and the outer kingdom. Generally, we meditate for, let us say, an hour and a half or so. The remaining time, we are in the outer kingdom. So, how do we practice the inner kingdom in the outer kingdom? I mean, do we practice detachment? How do we deal with relationships which draw us into the outer kingdom? Are there ways by which we can stay in the inner kingdom when we are in the outer kingdom? Practical ways. Detachment or any, how do we do it practically?
Want to try it first?
Okay.
They've all taken
Well-
Raja Yoga and are Kriya Bonds.
Okay, great. So, as I said, inactivity then, to think of God, to try to feel that God is serving through you in all that you do, and to really just, the whole of your life, it's an offering. We're here in these bodies, in this incarnation, as God's instruments, but it's also a way to love God, and by loving God, we are doing service to all humankind. People see that, are inspired by that, and they choose, those citizens in their consciousness choose also that light because they're around it and they see it. So for us to live our lives with that attitude that it's by and for and of God, there's no other reason why we're here. It's to love God and be close to God, and that's why we're in these human bodies. So to try to express that through our service, through our work, our jobs, our family, and to, as it said in the affirmation on truthfulness, to be honest with ourselves, but not bogged down in our shortcomings. When we bog down in our shortcomings, then we are farther away from that inner kingdom. But when we can just honestly say, this is God, this is all God, living this life through me, whatever it is what it is, again, as it said in the affirmation. And the more we hold that attitude, then, as Ananta said, we're in the inner kingdom. We're functioning in this world, but what we see is the inner kingdom. What we see is like the saints and masters. We see the light. We see the children of God. We see the loving service and God serving us through all others. So it's just tilting our perspective a little bit to think and be like the saints and masters. They see us that way. They see us as children of God, and we need to hold that image for ourselves as well.
If you have an hour and a half to meditate, energize or do postures or be ready to begin meditation, and then when you sit, disconnect entirely from the outer kingdom. Come into the spine, relax the body, interiorize the mind, practice the techniques, Hong Sa, and then Om, and then Kriya, if you have Kriya, and do the techniques, and then after the techniques, sit in the stillness with focus at the point between the eyebrows. Don't think about the outer world, don't think about after meditation until the end of the meditation period. Let's say you have an hour, maybe in the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes, see yourself going into your day or the meeting or whatever it is, and try to carry the feeling of God's presence and joy and project it into that situation that you're going to face that after meditation. So Swamiji said, make the transition from the inner kingdom, the pure inner kingdom of just light, timelessness, infinite love, to the outer world by visualize yourself going through your day with that joy, with divine love. You can visualize the people you are going to meet with, or your children, or your teacher, or whatever the situation is, the outer kingdom, but project yourself, visualize yourself before you leave meditation as being, you can even visualize Master acting through you that day. Yogananda is going to go to this meeting for me or with me, and then we'll go together, and we'll keep this consciousness, this feeling of expansion, of harmony, all the feelings and vibrations of the meditation. Visualize your day permeated by Prem, Shanti, Ananda, joy. So visualize yourself, and then leave the meditation and try not to leave the state of consciousness, just make the body leave the meditation room and go through the day. There's different techniques, individuals. Sometimes a mantra or japa can help to keep the consciousness, but that's not practical in where you have to engage your mind in a meeting or something, or a difficult meeting. But instead try to hold the consciousness. Sometimes I hold if it's a difficult situation or tense, I hold part of my consciousness in the throat center and try and project peace into it. Luckily, I don't have many days like that anymore because I'm not leading a center anymore. I don't have problems anymore. I mostly just work with disciples, and we just chant and serve. But when you have to go to a difficult situation, you bring the inner kingdom from the meditation room through your calmness, through your light, through your divine love, just expanding it. And it can have really fun effects on people. We would, Matt Stickney and I were working in an Ananda community, and this man came. He was a craftsman. He was a serviceman. He was come to fix the heater, and he was in a really bad mood. And so I said, "Hey, buddy," and I was greeting him, and he goes, "I'm not your buddy." And I thought, uh-oh, I've just left a meditation. Why aren't you my buddy? And so I said to Matt, watch out, So Matt listened, he worked for him well, and he was very negative. So Matt said, you can't come into this place with that attitude. This is an ashram. You can't do that. And then the man said, I'm sorry. I just broke up with my girlfriend. I'm having a really bad day. So then we kind of talked it out, and he said, okay. And so when he was leaving, I go, see you later. And he goes, see you later. He was all full of joy. So Matt gave him joy. And from the inner kingdom, we gave him enough inner kingdom to stop being grouchy.
Any other questions? Yes, Panjanathan.
Yes. I have two questions. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, Arjuna asked Krishna, how does a yogi behave? How does he look like? How does he walk? What he does, what he doesn't do. Krishna answers him, but I don't understand the answer. I feel it's not a direct answer. Can I understand what exactly is the answer for that? And then question number 2, on some days the meditation just doesn't materialize. On some days it's very fine. And some days, even after sitting 1 or 2 hours, he doesn't behave. How do you handle that?
Let's do one question at a time, Panchanadan. Can you repeat the first question, please?
What is Krishna? I'll explain it. Arjuna asks Krishna, how does that yogi behave? And Krishna answers, but he doesn't understand the answer. Could you paraphrase the answer Krishna gives so we could then interpret it? Which part you're referring to? Because he answers for quite a few stanzas.
Yes, yes. He answers in more than 5 stanzas. He talks about the yogi, but he doesn't exactly answer how does the yogi look like, what he does and all.
So I think
the answer is not clear to me about.
Ask him what he doesn't understand.
Is there anything specific that you don't understand, or are you more asking how would Ananta and Maria answer that same question? How does the yogi behave and so on?
Arjuna wants to know how does the yogi look like.
The yogi looks like Yogananda. Krishna tells him, he describes the actions of the yogi, and he describes he's steadfast, he's calm, he is sensitive. And when you see Kriyananda's life, we saw that he was almost intricately attuned to the inner kingdom as he went through the business of the world. And so Kriyananda would often surprise us in what he would say to someone, but he would always explain it to us. He would always try to respond to that person's soul. So sometimes Kriyananda would be sharp with someone and encourage them to get moving. And other times he would say, "Oh, poor little thing." But he wouldn't, there was no outer pattern to it. And that was because Krishna told Arjuna, the yogi is always in the spine. And so whatever happens, he reacts from his center. And in that way, Arjuna was instructed to react not from ego or from likes and dislikes or even from the outer circumstance, but to react from the center, his center, which is the other person's center, which is the center of the battle, which is the center of the government, which is the center of business, to react in that way. So it's I think that Kriyananda was in constant dialogue inwardly with Yogananda. That he was listening to Arjuna all the time and asking. Kriyananda said to us, "I never do anything without an inner feeling." And that feeling is what Krishna was describing, is the centered feeling in the inner spine will give you guidance to act in every situation. And that's why it's so important each day to start with meditation, to clear out the ego's likes and dislikes, to let go of the preferences. It's got to be this way. Mulling things over. How could she say that? We end up carrying a lot of emotion that aren't inherent in the moment. And Kriyananda didn't carry that. He just was there, heart open, he's listening, he's watching, what does Krishna want here? What does Babaji Krishna want now? What can I do to express that? I think that's the import of what Krishna told Arjuna. It's interesting. There's a passage in Lao Tzu's book, the Tao Te Ching, and his disciple also says, the wise ones, we can't understand their consciousness. All we can do is watch how they act. and I really appreciate that. The older I get, the more I realize I could never tell what Kriyananda was going to do. But later on, I would understand, I see why he did this, because there was something in that person that this would help towards self-realization. And sometimes it was a song, a joke, a laugh, a firm word, a serious thought, a blessing with no words, or just sing a song. It's just, I think that he was always in communion with Babaji Krishna, sending out a vibration of correctness.
And Panchanathan, for your second question, you said some days something doesn't materialize in meditation. What was the something?
Yes, sir, something. For example, day before yesterday it was very fine. But today morning it was not all right.
Okay. So sometimes we have good meditations and sometimes they're crummy, and please explain.
And what do we do about it?
It is what it is. You know, if we, when we sit to meditate, a great saint said, even before you begin to pray, you are so filled with the bliss of God that you go into a state of ecstasy. So, you know, to look at our meditation as not something that, you know, we deserve a good meditation, we need a good meditation, we're owed a good meditation, you know, that it's to not come to it with this attitude of what is meditation going to give me, but rather go to our meditation with what can I give to God in this meditation. And that changes everything, because some meditations are good and some meditations you wonder if you should have spent your time doing that at all. You know, maybe you should have done something else. But if we make that time our time with God and just focus on being with God and loving God, and then it is what it is. And I think I can say, you know, for myself, I know my Guru Bhais can say that after many years of meditation, what you feel is the depth of your relationship with God. And it's not any one meditation or any a certain number of kriyas or higher kriyas or all of this. It's just we're cultivating and deepening our relationship with God. We're spending time with God, and that is so sweet. And we really, you know, we don't need to know more at this point. So, here we go.
The more techniques that you have, they give you opportunities. If your meditation is bad one day and you're not able to go deep, go back to Patanjali. Not so much yamas and niyamas, but asana. How's your posture? Are you relaxed? Dharana. Are you concentrating? Pranayama. Pratyahara. Are you letting your energy stay out? And you develop over the years the ability to it's a little game. I'm not having a deep meditation. Am I listening to Om? Am I relaxed? Is there tension in the shoulders? Am I thinking about yesterday? Am I thinking about tomorrow? Why am I absorbing my consciousness in the superconsciousness? Or like Maria said, just up the amount of devotion, chant, repeat the name of the Guru, meditate on an aspect of the divine, calmness, joy, light, love, sound, wisdom. You actually have more and more tools as you progress, and see if you can turn a bad meditation into a good one. And you can do it. And of course, call on Master. Complain. Take a complaint. I'm doing these kriyas. What's wrong? And let Master figure it out. And he will. He can, because you can turn a bad meditation to a good meditation through the grace of the Guru.